Welcome to the Photography is Dead podcast, where I sit down with photographers to talk about their beginnings, their process, and what photography really means to them. Our guest is British photographer, director, and publisher Rachell Smith, known for her striking portraiture and collaborative approach. Her subjects include Austin Butler, Ana de Armas, Kate Winslet, Lily James, Naomi Harris, Jessie J, Kate Blanchett, Stephen Graham, among many, many others. Her work has appeared in Vogue, Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Numero D, Allure, Women's Health, Rolling Stone, Esquire, and Glamour. She's also an official portrait photographer for the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, creating defining imagery for BAFTA nominees and winners. In 2024, she launched Defined magazine, a platform for celebrating creative freedom. Rachell's photography bridges the personal and the iconic. Obviously, the most important thing when we start this is for people to get their feet under the table and work out like who you are and where you've come from. So what was your beginnings in photography? How did you get started?
So I suppose I was first aware of photography and through both of my granddads, actually. So they were both really interested in just cameras in general and, you know, photographing the family. And I think it was when I started to paint and like draw a lot at school, because I knew I was very arty and sort of not academic. And my one granddad was like, well, why don't you borrow my camera and go and take pictures of people in the local market uptown and, come home and like, paint from the pictures. And I was like, okay, it's a good idea. And then I suppose just what happened is that I actually fell in love with taking the photographs more than I did actually drawing from them. I just kind of like continued practicing it. But a really kind of like lovely sort of, it's a bit of a sad but lovely story is that I went on one of these like school trips, as you do, and with like your whole class, classmates and teachers. And my granddad said, why don't you borrow my camera and take some pictures? And I actually lost it. And I was so heartbroken because I'd really bonded over my granddad with sort of borrowing his camera and like him really teaching me about, the camera and how it works. And I was so upset to come back home and tell him that I'd actually lost it. And I still can't, obviously I lost it. I can't remember what happened. I think I must have left it on the bus or something and then it just disappeared. But I was so upset because it was like, not about the actual camera itself, but just he trusted me to, my grandparents didn't have a lot of money and, that camera did, it did mean a lot to him. But obviously, he totally understood. It was like one of these things happen and then, he was able to get a new one and then we bonded, obviously the bond was already there. It wasn't about the physical camera itself. But yeah, I can remember just feeling so I guess that was probably like, I got quite emotionally attached to photography because of my granddad. So it's a lovely story, I suppose.
It's always good to have those connections when you're coming into something. I'm like the most ridiculous thing I can think of that's similar is I was very much into music as a teenager. And one of my favourite places to go was an old pub in Kingston that had like blues nights. And I lost my granddad's ring in the room watching a blues night there. And like, even now, that for some reason that place just sticks in the memory. So it's like it's a terrible circumstance in a sense, but it also, I don't know, it kind of binds you to a situation. With your photography then, at what point did you feel like you were going to start taking it seriously?
Gosh, you know what? I just made a really bold decision when you're kind of at the end of school and everyone's deciding what A levels that they want to do. And the only thing that I was really, really interested in at that time, because of, the last couple of years, just bonding with photography with both of my grandparents is, I just literally turned to my parents and I said, I think I just want to do photography. I really don't want to do anything else. And it is such a huge risk, I think, at that age. I think I was 16. So instead of, doing the safe route of just studying, different types of subjects, I just did photography. But I must say though, and I'm so passionate about supporting younger people in taking a creative path because I totally appreciate that I was very lucky to have parents at the age of 16 to say, if you want to do photography, great. But my dad always said to me, well, I remember at that point he said to me, he said, if you want to do photography, go and do it. Be passionate about it and do it well, but just go for it. And he's always been really like, my mom as well, very, and my sister actually, very supportive. And I just never really looked back. And I love school, had a great set of friends who I'm still really close with now. But I can just remember feeling like, oh, am I not as clever as my mates, because they're all very good at reading and, doing presentations, and their writing was brilliant. And, I just wasn't good at any of those things. And and it's so crazy that I don't know where it came from, but I just remember feeling, like it was kind of a not as important subject to study, if you like, at that kind of like A-level sort of level. But I think having that encouragement and that like, great, you go for it, for my parents, it gave me like, I guess, permission and the strength to just realise how important the arts actually is. And the one thing that I must say as well, that, and this actually changed my life, this quote that my dad said, and it totally opened my eyes up to the whole world, and in photography in particular, is that he said, because I expressed to him that, is art really that important? Blah, blah, blah. Obviously, we of course know how important it is.
Yeah.
But he said, Rachel, everywhere you look, there's art. Okay, yeah, you could obviously argue that there's a particular type of art of the painting, gallery walls and photography and sculpture and everything. But art is everywhere. It's in us as human beings to like innovate and create, and the buildings have been designed and built, and it's all art. And I thought, gosh, he's so right. And I thought, we sit, sleep, walk, live in and breathe art everywhere we go. Of course it's important. So from that day, I just thought, I am going to really take this seriously. I didn't go into it just, we'll just do photography. It'll be easy. It'll be fun. Of course it was fun, and it still is fun now. I still can't believe I get to do shoots now and I get paid for it. It's amazing. But I think because of that, I really started to think of it properly as like, I think I'm going to do this. And I really flourished at college, the college years, which is between 16 and 18, because all of a sudden I was sat in a classroom with other sort of like-minded people that had an interest in photography. Not all of them. There were a couple there that just thought that they wanted to do it because it really is just fun. But I really just loved it, because I'd never met anybody my age or of a similar age that was like arty before,
right,
other than my sister, to be honest. So yeah, it was brilliant. That's kind of like a very long-winded answer to your question.
That's not a problem. It's interesting because there's like a common stereotype with art and creativity that good art comes from the suffering, and a lot of people associate that with like it being a struggle for you to be an artist in the first place. Maybe you've got like a background of like a rough childhood, or you don't have the supportive parents. And I don't personally like the stereotype, because it feels like it's an excuse for people to pin them not doing what they wanted to do on. Like, if you can create from an incredibly difficult background, that's a great achievement. But equally, when someone has like a much more fortuitous background and things were going better for them as a kid, sometimes it's harder to find inspiration from that. And anyone that can make art, I really feel like is doing something kind of incredible. And obviously, like you say, making a living out of it. But not all great art comes from suffering in sort of like the broad sense. It comes from how someone wants to express themselves, and that seems to be more of an important thing. I think one of the problems with the way art has been sort of perceived in the 21st century is that if someone comes from a better background, their art is somehow less valid, or if they don't come from such a struggle, it's less valid. Do you ever find I always say to my wife that I'm ethnically Catholic because I'm always guilty. I always feel like I've done something wrong even when I haven't. But do you ever feel like, coming from a supportive background, do you ever feel like you had it easy, or you feel guilty about having it easy, or was there different challenges with that?
Oh, it's such a great question and something, and actually a lot of people don't talk about this. And I think, do you know what is funny? I have probably had a couple of moments during my career where I have thought about that quite deeply and thought, I have, obviously I've had, unfortunately had, like a very close friend pass away at a young age, and I've, seen my grandparents pass away, and, but my life has been, I've had very supportive parents. I always grew up with a roof on my head and food on the table. My parents did lose a house at one point where we, had next to nothing, and we were eating beans on toast, for dinner, and, sort of experienced things like that. But yeah, in terms of, coming from real hardship and struggles, I didn't experience that. I've been very, very fortunate in my family's, support system and sort of upbringing. But I think that for me, like you just mentioned, the need for individual expression, whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever you do, is really important, because I think that's how we understand each other. So actually, all different types of people creating art is important, because it's collectively how we understand each other in the world. So that kind of mindset really, I think, is quite a positive one to think of it, because nobody's voice is less important than another one, I don't think. But I think that it is really important to be really, I can get really deeply like emotional and inspired by artists that have come from, proper hardship and maybe really unsupportive parents. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing if anybody hasn't had any support at all growing up, and they've managed to sort of build a creative life for themselves. But equally, everybody works hard, don't they, in this industry?
I think that like the recent pushback on like the concept of Nepo babies comes from, it's absolutely fine to be a Nepo baby. It's absolutely fine to have come from, like, it makes sense that if you grew up watching mum be an actress and you always enjoyed what she did, that you would want to be an actress. None of that's a problem. But the issue comes when those people, in my opinion, that the problem comes when those people cosplay that they have somehow had a struggle to get where they are. And it's, I don't think a lot of people blame them for using the connections they have to get their foot in the door. But the problem is you are acting like you did it through some miracle of perseverance, when in fact it was like, Mum, can you have a word with your agent, because I'd really like to do this thing. And then, your name gets tied to it.
No, I was going to say, but you know what though, Chris, I think that, I think as humans, I think we sense if someone's not being authentic or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it becomes probably a little bit, authentic, is that if someone's blatantly making up a story because they think it's going to better their career, then that's just, it's just, whether it's the right way to do it, I don't know. If that's part of the concept, maybe interesting. I don't know, but
it's the same thing as like I grew up in sort of Surrey and South London, and you can hear a fake East London accent a mile away. But I mean, I live in Hampshire now, and it's the same thing here. Like, everyone talks with an accent from a place that they've never been to, that they've learnt it from either some kind of music or some TV show. And it, like, my alarm bells go off instantly. Like, that's just an inauthentic way of existing. So it's kind of strange. Well, anyway, the way that most people are going to find your work, in my opinion, through the nature of the beast, is that you photograph people that have a lot of notoriety. You photograph celebrities and big personalities in different parts of the entertainment field. Do you remember the first time you photographed someone that was of like a particular standing, and that first time you're in the room with someone that you personally consider to be a celebrity? Was it nerve-wracking? So
I managed to get a photography assistant position working for Rankin. I'm sure most people have heard of Rankin. He's pretty famous photographer in his own right. Photographer and publisher, and I went from college and university to all of a sudden walking to a Rankin photo shoot, which is pretty overwhelming in the first instant, because he's photographing the biggest stars in the world, and there's huge budgets, and I mean the studios are massive. He's got all the equipment that you can't even imagine, and it was it was nerve-wracking. And I remember the very, very first shoot that we did, which is a pretty amazing one to be on. It was when he was shooting a cover for Life magazine, and it was with Orlando Bloom. I think it was when the first Pirates of the Caribbean film. So either the first or second. I think it must have been the first one, because I'm talking about a very long time ago now. And I remember being so excited to meet Orlando Bloom, and on the phone to my mates and everything, like a few days before. Oh my God, it's going to happen! I got sent the call sheet, and from one of his other assistants, he's like, "Yeah, here's the call sheet. Yeah, it's Orlando Bloom, cover shoot, Life magazine. This is the call sheet." And I'm like, "Okay, this is really, really exciting." And it's so lovely to look back on those moments, and to sort of like look where you started to where you are now. But I remember, just standing at the back of the studio, just feeling so utterly useless, because I was like, I don't know anything yet. I thought I knew something, because I've just done, 5 years straight studying photography. But yeah, boy, did I not know anything. I really didn't know anything. But I, obviously made myself useful and just asked questions and learned. But I remember walking into the studio for that first 5 minutes, and just sort of standing there, just feeling a little bit overwhelmed, because everyone, obviously it's a high pressured shoot. Everyone's just setting up, and I'm thinking, okay, I really do need to start like saying, "Can I help you now?" And then Orlando Bloom walked in, and he walked straight up to me and said hello and shook my hand, and he was just such a lovely person. And I looked at him, and I just thought, obviously a bit starstruck at that moment in my life. But then I had this moment where I thought, yeah, you really are just a normal person, aren't you? This is really cool. Like I felt instantly relaxed and kind of just, okay. But it was, that was my first ever experience. But I was petrified that first day. But that, I think he's really, he's such a lovely person, and that really kind of like, I think to have had a first experience meeting someone really well known in the public eye, he was a great one, because instantly, there was no ego, and kind of just felt, very normal, I guess.
And then the first time that you were, not Rachel the assistant, but you were Rachel the photographer, and you were there photographing someone with a bit of notoriety and experience. What was that difference like?
Do you know what? It's big because it's happened, because my career's grown and grown and grown, like over the past sort of 15 plus years. It all ends up just being a bit of a blur, to be honest. But I think, when I was assisting Rankin, and I did about 3 years, he was very good in the way that he would sometimes just hand you the camera, even if he was shooting someone like really well known, and he'd be like, "You do it for a couple of minutes." I remember thinking, oh dear, I can't believe he's put me in this position. But I actually think being put in the deep end throughout those assisting years, you just get it. It was brilliant, because I wasn't just doing the lights for him, or making teas and coffees. It was being put in the deep end that way, and that was really amazing experience, and I'll be forever grateful for that, actually. If you ever listen to this, Rankin, thank you. And then when he started doing his Rankin Live project, where the sort of concept is, photographing people in photographing people, and then the idea is that you can have it retouched and printed within the same 15 minutes. So it's kind of like showing that process really quickly. And then he obviously couldn't do all of the days, because he was doing it full time for 6 weeks. So a lot of the time midweek, it was me or the other assistants taking the pictures, as if we've been trained by Rankin, and we were sort of acting like him. So I had so much experience photographing people, not famous people, but photographing a lot of people in a very short space of time. So that was great. And I think, when I left, who was my first it does end up being a bit of a blur, Chris, because I was so active in those days, and obviously like working with people when I was assisting. But I think the first time I ever really sort of felt it kind of like being, okay, now you're the photographer, and it was probably, do you know what, I'm probably going to say only really in the last 5 years when I really drastically changed my style, and I really felt like I was becoming the photographer that has always been inside me, that I've always wanted to be artistically. Have I really felt like I've really owned that artistic space with the talent and everybody? Obviously it's a collaboration at the end of the day. The type of pictures that I create, they wouldn't look like that if I hadn't had the team, the right team around me to do it, the hair and makeup and the styling. But yeah, I'm going to say probably that shift about 4 or 5 years ago.
With this being probably a good time to point out that obviously the way that me and you have met in person is that I have a YouTube series which is about behind the scenes of photographers working with a little bit of like interview audio overlaid, and you were really kind enough to give me the opportunity to come down. It feels like it was about 5 years ago because of the way this year's going, it's speeding by, but it wasn't that long ago. And I got to come down and see pretty much a front to back of your working process and the team and everything. If I can talk for a second, I know that no one's tuning in to listen to me speak, but I've done probably a couple dozen behind the scenes videos for people, or I've been and photographed behind the scenes. I've seen a lot of photo shoots for a lot of different styles. Very fortunate in that sense. But with yourself, this is going to sound like it's not the right word, but it felt so cleverly choreographed. The first thing that we had on arrival was that you sat everyone down and you kind of talked through what everyone should expect from the day and what everyone can contribute and where your ideas were coming from. And then you had this like dialogue about other people's ideas being brought to the table. It was very open. One thing I hate about becoming an adult is that I've realized that nothing's ever like true. There's always like true from this perspective or true from that perspective. With the way that your shoot went, and I obviously I don't know about every shoot that you do, but with the one that I saw, you are very good at leading without acting like a leader in an authoritative sense. So like you have control of everything and you are like steering everything, but it never felt like there was any hierarchy, if that makes sense. So when it comes to, I'll stick with choreography because I think it's the right word.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the choreography of your shoots, how important is it for you to find that balance of like, well, this is where we're going to end up and I need your help to get there, but we're also all on the same level?
It really is my mission to make sure that absolutely everybody in that room feels like that they can be their authentic and creative best selves, because I think that it works differently for different people, doesn't it? But for me, I just would like for there to be just such a respectful, kind space. Because you are under a lot of pressure, time mainly. You really don't have a lot of time anymore to create what you're trying to create, this like iconic work, and it's really amazing, like these beautiful visuals, with such little time.
Yeah.
So I do so much planning beforehand. Myself just thinking, okay, shot by shot, I can transition from this lighting to this lighting very quickly. So maybe we do that look then and that look next. I've already obviously spoke to the stylist and we've kind of thrown some visuals back and forth, and the clothes edit already. Had conversations with the whole team, and then I feel like it's just a really lovely way to sort of sit people down in the morning, and to kind of just go through everything again. So then everyone can literally have a cup of coffee and some breakfast and just kind of like feel really good about it and create. But also what I will say, and it's so weird, not weird, but it's like having control and steering the ship, allowing everybody to have a voice is a collaboration. You know, I can't do hair. I don't know. I can suggest some makeup ideas, or I think that we should go in this direction. But then the makeup artists would be like, well, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. And I'm like, oh, amazing. So, you know, you kind of need everyone to feel comfortable in that space. But at the same time, even though I've got a really strong idea of it in my head shot by shot and how I can transition from that light to that light, you have to also have that trust that if something's not working, you have to change it very quickly in that moment, and you have to make really quick decisions. And there's been so many occasions, and I've definitely done this in the past, where you're on set and you can start feeling the sweat dripping on your head because you're trying to make something work and it's just not working. Mm-hmm. And half an hour's gone by, an hour's gone by, and you start that kind of little panic inside because you're like, okay, this is not working, it's not going where I want it to go, or it's not. You know, you have to learn when to just, you know, in the right way, say to yourself and the rest of the team, okay, something's not working, let's stop, let's rethink, or how about if we change this or we change that? So I'm very vocal with everybody, and I'm like, listen, look, it could be that it's the lighting that's actually not right and I need to change the lighting. It could be a really easy fix. So I don't want anyone to feel like that they can't even say to me, you know, that maybe it's me that needs to just tweak that thing, because we're all on a mission to create that one perfect iconic image. So I've gone off on one a little bit, haven't I, Chris?
No, I actually kind of like where we are, because another thing that I did really notice with watching you and the purpose of, the truth is, the reason there's a podcast, the reason there's a YouTube series, there's a reason I do anything, is and I'm not going to turn the camera because no one can see the camera that I'm talking to you through, but I'm obsessed with photography. I have books upon books upon books. I have my own little library of photography. I am obsessed with photography. I started the YouTube series because everything on YouTube to do with photography is equipment based. And I don't care about equipment in the slightest. I care about the artistic approach and how people do different directorial styles and what people are trying to communicate. And I find it fun when I perceive a piece of work one way, and then I watch them talk about it, and they are going at it from a completely different perspective. Yeah, and that's what I love about art, is that one thing to someone can mean the complete opposite to what its intention was, but that's kind of what it's allowed to do. You said you don't know much about hair, or you know, you're not a hair or makeup artist, or whoever it is in the team that's not your specialty. Is one of the skills that I think you have, but am I right in seeing it this way, that the trick is to not speak technically, is to kind of talk about like emotion and have like visual prompts, but to have a theme that everyone understands on a kind of very neutral level, that they can then say, well, if you're trying to achieve that effect, I would use X technique, which you would never know because you're focused on the photography. Is it having that almost like universal language of just emotion and feel that helps the process run?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the shoot that you came on with, it was very much centered around birds and the beauty of, I can't remember the type of bird. It was what was the bird that we were focusing on? It was one very particular bird, a water bird. I can't remember the name of it now. But I can't know if you remember, but I printed lots of pictures of this particular bird. Yeah. And it was a beauty story with a model, which I mainly shoot people in the public eye, but I do love doing your beauty shoot. She was
a great model as well. It was fantastic.
She was brilliant. Yeah, she was so good, and she really was invested in it as well and sort of understood it. So I kind of had lots of pictures of this particular bird, and had sort of really close up details of their wing and their kind of eyes and their expression, and when their wings are out, when their wings are down, and there's something really simple about just really focusing on just one really simple thing like that, and then letting the whole team just really think about their techniques and how they can kind of bring it to life. And I think that having sent them the mood board a couple of days or even a week beforehand, you're giving them time to think technically and to think of the ideas. But then in that moment when you're having that conversation before we all even start doing anything, I'll then start the conversation and kind of like let everybody tell me and everybody else what they're thinking. And then it just turned out on that day that what everybody else was thinking was absolutely brilliant and totally spot on. I remember I got really excited when Jordan, the hairstylist, was like, oh, well, maybe we can just do this, but it's really like, in a really sort of fashion forward way. And I was like, yes, that is brilliant. It's like taking such a beautiful animal and just creating this world that we're trying to create with this model, but it's all just done in a very fashion forward way. Whereas if maybe perhaps somebody has got an idea that doesn't quite gel or fit with everybody else's, then we'll just be really honest with each other and like almost problem solve that. And then but allow everybody to kind of have another idea and another idea, or maybe I'll be like, oh, well, perhaps this. And so it's kind of like knowing how to kind of let the flow of that conversation happen, but they're the ones that are coming up with the technical ideas.
I mean, to that extent, like one thing that I did see with the shoot, that I was there for, was that there was several moments where makeup artist or hair or styling or yourself talking about the light or the composition all brought up issues, but it was like seamless, the approach to like. There was one point, I can't remember which set it was during, but she didn't like one particular aspect. I think it was of the eye makeup. And she just said 2 seconds, and she walked off, grabbed a palette, came back, made the change, and it was like, and shoot. The fact that something wasn't 1,000% right didn't derail anything at any point. There was changes to lighting. There was times where you outwardly said, no, like that's not doing the thing it's supposed to be doing, so let's move it to this. But it never felt like it was interrupting the flow of it, which I think is like, there was a few things about watching you work that was like equal parts incredibly inspiring and terrifying from my point of view, because and I think that's really the best place you can be when you're in admiration of something, and when it kind of makes you want to go and do it, but you realize as well that you are so far out of your depth. That's the best place to be, because that's fun. But like your lighting in particular is terrifying because you have very little. And if I say something that's the wrong way of saying this, I do apologize, but there is very little sort of obvious academic structure to the way that you're lighting entirely by feel, and you have a human light stand, which is always fun to watch.
My poor assistant.
She's wonderful, and she was incredible at kind of reading where you wanted things to go, but just watching you have so many moving parts, and
it's like a dance. It is literally
choreography.
Like a dance.
I stand by my word. But it was incredible watching you know what all of those parts were doing, because I've seen photographers that the second there's a second light switched on, they're confused.
Do you know what? It's funny. I don't think I've ever told anybody this ever, like not even people really close to me. When I'm preparing for a shoot, when I wake up in the morning and I've got a shoot, I'm obviously very excited and very kind of like nervous excited, because I'm almost having to like build myself up into it's not a performance. I'm 100% authentically me. But it's like, it's so intense and it's so, I guess emotional in some ways. I know that's a bit of a, it's not like emotional as in like, I'll, cry on set or anything, but you just put in so much into it that I have to build myself up very slowly by breathing deeply and kind of almost in a Zen-like place, like ready for that kind of like big show. After most shoots now, it's such a whirlwind of this such amazing, intense experience and collaboration and the physical aspect of it as well is, your mind's moving so quickly, and I'm really thinking about, the only way I could describe it is that I can actually see lights in my head, and I'm thinking about exposure for that light, that light, that light, that light, that light. If I just move that literally a fraction to the left, I know that's exactly going to be the right place on their face that I want it to be. Yeah. And then I'm thinking about the clothes and everything else, and then so I feel like that in the morning. I'm like that on the middle of a shoot. And then when I finish a shoot and then I'm driving home and I go home, it's like I just totally switch off because I've used so much of myself that day that I struggle to operate. I mean, I used to love going for a drink or a meal after a shoot with people, but I struggle doing that now because it's so intense.
Yeah,
or maybe it's just getting older. I don't know.
I came home from that one. I think I had like an hour and a half, 2-hour journey afterwards, and I remember I got in and I made a space on the sofa, and that was it. I was done, because it was like you said earlier about when you started assisting and you come in and you think you have an idea of how things work, and then you see someone work and you're like, oh, I just know nothing. And watching like the way that the whole thing played out, it was like really enjoyably humbling, because like one of the things that's, I don't know if you remember when you first started photography, but like the first time you get something in focus, you're like, yeah. And then the first time you do something that has like a narrow depth of field or like some kind of trick to it, you're like, oh yeah, that's really, look, I'm amazing at this. I'm doing great. Yeah. And then you can hit a wall and you don't feel that same joy. You kind of get into the routine of like, yeah, that's a photo. I know I can do this. And Lord knows I'm a wedding photographer, so I spend most of my life feeling like that. But it was really enjoyable watching like the push for things to be changed, and then me trying to predict where things were going and just being wrong on almost all accounts. There was one point, the video at the point that this is going to be released, the video of you working hasn't been released. And there was one point where you had a piece of glass from a picture frame and a mirror, and then continuous lights and flash, and there was like there was another, it looked like an oven glove, but I think it was just to save the poor girl's hand from the glass. And it was like an octopus's worth of hands all holding different pieces of equipment and glass and whatnot. And I genuinely was like, what on earth is she doing? Like, this is madness. And then one of the pictures come through and I was like, damn. Like, it's not that I didn't think of doing that as an idea, but it's like, even watching the process happen, I didn't understand where it was going to end up. So like that innovation, does that come from like experience of experimentation, or does that come from inspiration from other photographers? You know, when you're getting someone to stand there with an oven glove and 2 bits of glass, what leads up to that moment?
I mean, I've always looked back at the old greats for inspiration. So like one being Man Ray, you know, with his just skill for that kind of beautiful abstract world in photography, and his just his whole style in general. In fact, one of my old friends messaged me the other day and said, "Oh, Rach, this looks like a Man Ray picture," and I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." You know, and you've looked at someone's work your whole life. So, but I think. Oh God, sometimes I sit there in an evening and I don't even like watching TV, and I'll just sit there with a pen and paper and I just start drawing a frame, and I just start drawing like just abstract thoughts in it. Mm-hmm. It's probably a little bit weird now when I'm actually saying it out loud, because I don't think I've ever told anybody this either. But then it just I just end up staring off into space and then thinking, oh, yeah, if I have a mirror and then put a light on that mirror, and then it can reflect off this piece of perspex glass, and then that could reflect on the subject, how amazing would that be?
I mean, it was amazing. That's the thing. It was amazing. It was. I remember even the stylist who was right next to me when I was filming at that point, and I was like, "Oh, damn!" And then she looked at me. She's like, "I have no idea how they've just done that." And I was like, "I'll be honest with you, I have no idea how they've just done that, and I'm a photographer." Okay, so on that note, when you're having those, what I would refer to as headaches with pictures, but you're calling inspiration, When you're having those moments where you're drawing those frames, is that where you know you're shooting such and such person next week, and you know that they've done something work-wise that's in a particular vein or has a particular theme, and you're like, okay, I've got to try and like bring that theme in without it being obvious? Is that how that starts, or are you just absolutely winging it and things just seem to crash together in chaos?
So, wow, I love this. This is such a brilliant question. So that I do have, and I can see it right now on my desk. I've got a huge folder which is called Experiments/Abstract, and I've got lots of these like funny little abstract drawings with notes and ideas of like how I could achieve that idea, which I should look for that folder a lot more actually. But I do have random thoughts and ideas in that. But a perfect example, which will lead us on to the Lily James cover shoot that I just did for Define magazine. So just in short, if I can do it in short, because I talk a lot, is so she is promoting a new film called Swiped, which is she plays the founder and CEO of Bumble, and Lily and her business partner have just they've started their own production company, and this is I don't know whether it's the first film that they've done through the production company, but it's one of the first, and they're really trying to champion female and strong female stories with resilience. So to cut a long story short, when I was researching for that shoot, what's brilliant about Lily is that she'd already said to through her people and my people, she was like, I would really, for this cover shoot, I'd really love to explore the idea of a woman coming into their own light, into their own power. Because it's it's kind of a bit of a representation of the film, but also I thought this is brilliant because Lily and her business partner are also empowering, doing these huge empowering stories, and it kind of just felt it all really excited me, and I just thought, wow, okay. So I started researching, and then had this whole idea in place. But I sometimes just look at like symbols for inspiration. I try not to be too obsessed and just bombarded with looking at like too many references and references here, references there. I try really hard to just be inspired by different ways. But there is the inverted triangle. It's got a few different meanings, but one of the main reasons is it sort of represents a woman who's grounded. But that's like powerful and grounded, because it's that perfect like point that's on the ground, grounded, pointing down. And I thought I really want to somehow, in an abstract way, doesn't have to be in all pictures, but I want to try and get that inverted triangle in there throughout the shoot as a symbol of a powerful woman who's got that kind of like really strong sort of grounded sense about her. So I then started to think and sketch and draw of how I can light or bounce light or get that symbol within the photography. So I really enjoyed, a few days before the shoot, just sitting down and just really thinking about that. And a perfect example is, and I was explaining this to a DOP earlier who I'm working with on another shoot soon, because he actually asked me about this particular picture. So there's one of the pictures of Lily where she it's kind of a bit of a profile shot, and she's kind of like looking up with her eyes closed, and there's kind of like a reflection of this inverted triangle like kind of across her sort of face, but kind of going off. And that was shot outside with a blackout back curtain behind her, and then I had the triangle mirror next to me that was reflecting the sky in a bit of clear perspex, which was in front of her. Sorry. So you can't see the perspex, but it was a way of me bringing that symbolism into a portrait of a beautiful, strong woman, without kind of like, and it's abstract and weird and wonderful because you don't really know how that shape got there.
Right. I mean,
Oh, that's so intense. Sorry.
No, it's you know what, this is the thing though, is I feel like it's easy to do the first 95% of photography. Like, you know, like the moving parts of a camera, put a light. If you want something to show up in the picture, it has to be lit. So you point at a light at the thing. It's all of the like weird idiosyncrasies and little details that take stuff the other 5%, which most people don't get to because they you know, a lot of it is down to replication and just general understanding and ability. But it's kind of fun because I get the impression when I watched you work that I don't know how to say this without this sounding like I'm being a little bit mean, and I don't mean this to sound mean.
No,
I promise
say
you.
it. I will not be offended.
I've got a very German name. If I wanted to be mean, I would be. But it feels like you would be having as much fun if there was no one there and you were just playing with the lights.
Oh my God, that is so true. I don't know. I just really love creating, and it just turns out that, you know, and it's actually not just the camera, it is lighting. I'm so fascinated about the power of light and how, you know, I think most photographers are definitely defined by the way that they light or their style. You know, a lot of it is about their choice of lighting and, you know, obviously direction and positions and just general kind of like mood and look of everything. Of course, it's a collection of everything. But, lighting to me, it's not just technical. It is like the emotion part of lighting that you can bring into an image that I really am fascinated by, because actually a lot of the way that I light isn't probably technically perfect. A lot of it's actually really unexpected, and I'm very confident and happy to know in myself if I think something's right or not. And just for an example, I was doing another shoot a couple of months ago, and I left one of the apertures with the spotlights on it, just pointing to the back of the studio, and I think somebody like walked past it, and it created this like amazing shape, and I was like, whoa, stop, and they were like, oh, I was like, just take a step back, and I was like, oh wow, I was like, look at that shape, and this. People must think I'm absolutely bonkers. But I did. I was like, oh my God, I was like, that light is amazing. I just need to get somebody. I was like, don't move. I just need to get the person in that place because that light's amazing. And I can't really explain a lot of it, but it's just something just happens and just, I guess, lighting definitely conveys an emotion in photography for me.
Well, that's the thing is I think that there is an emotional resonance with female art that is different to male art. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I also just don't particularly care for competition in art at all. I remember joining a camera club and for a social experiment, realizing real quick that I wasn't cut out for that. But like the idea of like art being a competition doesn't make sense to me. But I do think that men, and I'm talking from what I've seen, obviously I have very limited experience, but men light technically and women light emotionally. And I feel like histograms are a really good example of this. I feel like men use histograms to explain why their bad photo is good. And I've yet to have a conversation with a female photographer who talks about histograms. And I think that when we first spoke and I got in contact with you, I remember I was trying really hard not to make it like, because I didn't want to like mess it up and you not want me to be there or anything. But I wanted to like have like a broad variety of photographers come on and do the behind the scenes thing. Couple like prerequisites. One, I have to like your work because otherwise I'm not going to be like emotionally resonating with what's going on. But I also didn't, when we spoke, I don't remember exactly how I said it, but I essentially said like, it's not about having a female photographer because like, you know, it's a box thing or anything like that. Like one thing I really don't like about sort of modern sociopolitics generally is that like I have an incredible wife. She's insanely intelligent and empathy like you wouldn't believe, and she's so great at her job. And she's not great at her job for a woman. she's great at her job, and I sometimes it feels like the way that we're setting up progress is regressively, and we're kind of saying like, isn't this good for someone of that type? And it all feels kind of gross, and it feels like we're putting the cart before the horse in terms of fixing the problem. With your work, especially because you do stuff with celebrities, and there's a weird parasocial thing that I think we inherently have just by seeing someone. Like, I think you had a picture of... Did you have a picture of Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah, on my website, yeah.
If I could marry a man, it would probably be him or Lenny Kravitz. But seeing your interpretation of Jeff Goldblum, like that makes him sound like a prop, but it's your interpretation of Jeff Goldblum because it's your vision. It shows you your approach to something that I can actively see someone else's approach to the same thing and see how you both end up where you end up. That's the emotion of photography, and that's the enjoyment of photography. The technicalities, I don't find that exciting. I don't find megapixels exciting. I don't find lighting ratios exciting. But like, if you have to explain to me why your photo is good, I don't think your photo is good.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, the photo, that's kind of the point of the photo. The phrase isn't, here's 1,000 words to go with the photo. So with your celebrity work, how much do you, or public figure work, sorry, I don't want to make it sound like it's something it's not. With your public figure work, how much is it you doing your expression of your vision with that person? And how much is it you avoiding doing something that you've seen of that person before?
Oh gosh, great question. They're all great questions because I keep saying they're great questions, but I will, everyone that I photograph, I want them to be as excited and invested in the creative idea as me. So I am very collaborative before a shoot. So if I can, most of the time, I will be in some way or another, if it's indirectly or directly, in contact with that person and see if they, like my idea, they like the mood boards. I want them to feel excited by it. I will already do research to see all of the other photo shoots that they've done before, because I really don't want to repeat. I want to do something different. I want to show them in a different way, a different light. They don't want to repeat what they've done before. So, I have, all of these sort of intense pre-production kind of meetings and research and everything. But on the actual shoot itself, when they're in front of my camera, I'd say normally 90% of people, if they haven't worked with me before, they're always a little bit apprehensive. They're like, oh gosh, what am I going to look like? Especially if there's a different take on them, or, maybe they've been styled in a way that they haven't been styled before. But I'd say, because I'm so organised, I'm always very honest. I'm like, just give me literally 2 minutes just to tweak the lights. I'll make sure it's perfect for you, and then and then come over and have a little look. So I'm reassuring them that I'm good at what I do. You look great. This is how you look, and like I said, 99.9% of the time they see that first picture when I've told them to come over and have a little look, and they're like, oh, like, okay, great, yeah, I see it now. I can see, because you can show people a million references and have this vision and chat, but it's not until you're actually there on the day that they can kind of see it all come into life, that they're like, oh wow, yeah, this is different. I haven't seen myself this way before. Yeah, I think I'm going to start really investing in it now emotionally. But one thing for me is that, yes, you could argue that it is a little bit, like fantasy, and obviously we're being very creative with different types of clothes, which they might not wear on a day-to-day basis, and maybe they don't wear the hair this way. But there's one theme that always sort of runs throughout my work, and that's kind of like empowering people. So when they're in front of me and we're chatting, and I'm having that dance with lights, and I might be talking to my assistants as well, and they're having their hair, makeup, touch-ups, I'll chat to them, and I want to try and coach them in a way, or change their mindset of how they're looking at my lens and how they're looking at my camera. So, and it's really simple things like, can you imagine all of the people that have like empowered you throughout your journey in your career or your life so far. Like really imagine those people, you know, the people that you love, the people that have make you feel like you, and then imagine them in that lens. And repetition is really important for me, and I keep remembering that. I keep bringing them back to that. Keep reminding of that. You know, that if that doesn't work, I'll say something else. I'm like, okay, let's try this. You know, it could even be like if there was one. If you really want to inspire an audience with everything that you know and have experienced, then you can imagine them as one person, and that person is in that lens right now. I want you to talk to that person, and most of the time something happens in their mind, and then with the commotion that's happening on set, and then I'll very quickly, you know, start talking to my assistants. I'm like, no, like that, but you can see them practicing it. So then what happens is that they end up sitting in this space or standing in this space, and they start thinking about their lives, and they start thinking about really powerful moments. And then it starts translating into the pictures. You know, I'm just going to take a quick picture just to take the light, but they're thinking about it. So actually it's the connection of the eyes and the way that they feel that is like what is authentic.
Yeah.
And that's what's really bringing that emotional side of it to me. And then I just kind of like dance with the lights and everything else to kind of like bring that to life. So it's really is a collaboration, but there's something really cheesy as it sounds. There's something really magical happens when no one knows it's happening. They probably don't even know it's happening, but I can feel it, and I can see it happening with my own eyes, and I love that. That's what I really enjoy when I see that switch in someone's mind, when they actually start breathing and they're really, really, really thinking about it. And I'm quite serious when I say it, because I don't want them to think that it's like funny, you know, because you know, you could just easily laugh at that. Oh, you want me to think about whatever, but I really say it with like pretty heartfelt and emotion, and then they're like, oh, okay. So I think it's the way that you say it is really important as well. Because it's how your whole being, and how you're like directing, and how your environment is within that person that is setting the tone for the portrait, I guess, if you like.
Yeah, I remember years ago, one of my heroes in photography, a wedding photographer called Ross Harvey, he talked about matching emotional state with the person who you need to be on your side. And I'd never really thought about it at all at that point. I always had the impression, this is incredibly male. I always had the impression that you kind of just do what you do and people gather around it. And he was like, the thing is when someone has the end product that is so good, you can't say, nah.
Yeah.
Or you're just wrong. Like,
it doesn't work.
Yeah, you can't say it doesn't work, because like we have proof that it does work. Because I wouldn't be British if I didn't try and think of a negative side of something. What's the process if you have a difficult subject? What's the process if you have someone that's not buying in, or they're a bit distant? Or I imagine for you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I feel like the worst thing for the way that you work would be if they're distracted. Yes,
I'm distracted, or really, maybe they just really just don't like the photo shoot experience, and they're just there because it's, you know, part of their press run of a film, and they literally want to get in and get out, and they're not even allowing anybody to, like, you know, talk to them or let them feel comfortable. It is rare, to be honest, but it obviously does happen. But what I have learned over the years is to not take it personally. I think that's very important, because I think you have to understand, not understand actually, you don't need to understand, but you just need to be understanding of, you know, someone might have had a really hard day. They might have a back-to-back schedule and they're extremely tired, but this was the only morning that you could literally do this shoot. You know, I am always trying to sort of understand it from their point of view. If, you know, obviously you do have the odd one that are just really like got really bad attitudes. So you're just thinking, oh, like I wouldn't speak to anybody in that tone or that way. And unfortunately, you do have to just kind of like get through it and just sort of deal with them. So yeah, it is very hard in some situations, rare situations, where you know that you kind of almost have to take a step back with what's so natural and so like that you're so passionate about. Because I certainly have had people that have been great, and they're you know, they're nice enough, but they're just kind of like yeah whatever, like just take some good pictures and great. And I'm like, okay, so I know then that I do have to take just a little bit of a step back and not change how I'm working, but it's just
mellow it,
not as intense.
Yeah,
because I've tried fighting it. I've tried fighting it before, and I've tried keep going back and saying, but the idea, and if someone's in that mindset that they are just really tired, and or they're just like I just want you to like me good, and then that's it and great, then you really have to kind of like run with it in a lot of situations.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's a Chinese finger trap at that point, right? You're like, if you keep trying to pull away, and they keep trying to pull away, it's just never going to go right.
Yeah.
With your general body of work, how much of your planning and execution of your shoots is about adding to that body of work and the consistency of your style versus wanting to evolve your style and make it more? Like, do you ever feel like you have to do something that looks like a little bit of the old stuff, and then we can do the new stuff, and then there's kind of a bridge across from you in 2023 to you in 2025? Or do you just, foot to the floor, accelerate, and just people will have to figure it out?
I mean, I think I've definitely got, I think there's always a couple of things in there that I would probably never want to like really change. And that's, being creative in an abstract way, whether it's sort of, intentionally done or maybe it's done with light. I like photographing everybody quite powerful. I'm not one to kind of like make people look sort of really sad or or like anything like that. So that kind of always sort of that they're always the tick boxes for me. I'm like, I want to empower people. I want to be able to be kind of arty and creative with light. I do prefer being more on the darker side, I guess, that kind of moody sort of, it's still bright, but there's kind of like a mood and a sort of cinematic sort of take to it. I don't think that's ever going to really change, but I am constantly thinking about different ways that I can light. And this sounds so geeky, but like if somebody tells me about like a new light that's been released and I realise that I can use this new light shaping tool to do something different, I literally can't wait to like start using it and just testing it out. But I think that actually it's having the confidence to do something a little bit out of your comfort zone, and because it costs so much money for me to do a shoot. I don't tend to like, because I don't have my own studio either, and I rent a lot of my stuff. I can't just walk into the studio and just test. Like it's very expensive. So, the shoots that I do, I will be bold, and I will just be like, I'm gonna just try this. I'm gonna just try this new light that I'm a bit uncomfortable using because I haven't used it before.
You definitely don't seem to have a fear of failure.
Really?
Like something not, I don't mean that to sound bad, but like you don't have that like I was saying earlier with you like trying stuff, and when it doesn't work, you don't seem to let that hit your confidence at all. So like that must be the same thing. Like you're going bold because you know that you have like the ability and the confidence to say nah and switch it.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think actually being really honest with people, like if I am trying something new, or if I am trying something that is a little bit like really arty, for example, and it might some people might think, oh God, that's a bit weird. You know, maybe the light's moving their like hair or something, and it's all going whoosh, I don't know. You know, some people might think, oh God, that's a little bit too crazy, a bit too arty for me. But I will actually prepare people, and I will say, I'm trying something. It's either going to work or it's not. But at least we can try. And then I think people are like, yeah, cool, yeah, whatever, yeah. Generally people are like, yeah, whatever. You know, they're just like, yeah. And you know, and if it literally doesn't work, I will know within the first like 10 frames. And then I'm just like, yeah, it didn't work, let's just move on. And then I'll just revert back to like plan A and B, you know, like, yeah, okay, let's just go back to that lighting setup because I know that works. But yeah, I think that in recent years, not being scared of like failure has definitely been less and less, because I just think like, I mean, again, sort of going back to my early years and my parents, really feeling like, I mean, gosh, if you were to speak to that 15, 16-year-old to who I am now, I mean, they're almost like a completely different person. But, you know, at that age, you're so uncertain and you've got your whole life ahead of you and you're like, oh, what about it's not going to work out, blah, blah, blah. You know, but even to this day, my parents are like, literally, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
It just doesn't work out. Or someone says, oh no, that's horrible. Oh gosh, or no, you know. Yeah, that is literally the worst that's going to happen. So I've just learned to deal with it, just not take it personally, because I'm just like, yeah, cool, yeah, actually, yeah, do you know what? Actually didn't work out, so let's just move on. It's just, yeah.
You do something that if I could pick a job, like, you know, to just drop into and do as a job, photographing actors would be a big thing. I'd love to do that. I love the idea of photographing performers as opposed to models.
Yeah.
Because models is aesthetic, whereas with actors or people that are more performative, you can like embed a character into whatever it is that you're doing. When you're photographing actors, are you photographing, like, are you revealing the story or are you telling it? Like, are you photographing the actor or are you photographing a character?
Oh, it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I really do enjoy photographing actors because they have that skill and that ability to, you know, that they can completely embody a different, like, you know, mindset, you know, mentally, physically. Like, I find it such a fascinating skill. I think I'm just generally just really fascinated with actors in general, because I just think it's incredible, like, what they do. But yeah, there is kind of like, in my experience, I actually think most actors like a bit of a character to play, because you know, it's what they do, and it's a way of kind of getting them excited. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you are in this character initially, but then it just gets more them throughout the shoot happens. And actually, a lot of the characters and a lot of the ideas and the concepts that I come up with, I've written and thought about because I've watched all of their interviews and I've done research on them, and it's kind of almost like a version of them that I'm trying to like tap into and trying to get out of them, that kind of, again, that really empowered sort of mental state. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a bit of both. Is that a weird answer?
No, I think I think it probably also is quite person dependent, because I think of someone, if I was to pull names out, me and my wife are enormously into films. And if I was to think of someone like Joaquin Phoenix, I don't feel like it would be very easy to get a particularly honest representation of him, because he is very much a character actor. And I think that he probably has a lot of walls. I might be completely wrong, but talking from 30 yards away, that's what it seems like. I remember, I think we talked about this and I came and watched you shoot about, I think it was Margot Robbie was on a shoot and the photographer said, I want you to be yourself. And she said, I didn't become an actress to be myself. So like there's obviously at least a portion of them that like implicitly want to have those walls up and have that character. I also think that, nothing to do with photography, but a completely random side note, I feel like photographers that are very much a celebrity before they're an actor are usually quite bad at what they do. The ones that are more about putting themselves forward and being like almost having a representation of themselves on screen in a film are usually not the best actors. The best actors are the ones that can kind of show a side of themselves that maybe they don't want people to see.
Yeah.
So you know, I don't know. I'm talking about this like I have any idea of what it's like to photograph actors. I think I photographed 2 in my entire life. So.
But you know what though? It really, really is. It's so different. Like with everyone's different. Everyone's got their own way about life and their own things. So it's kind of like I have this process and I have this way, but it is and I'm still learning how to adapt that to a huge variety of different types of people. It really is the way that you're delivering it and that first meet and greet that I feel like is crucial.
Right.
And it's all a really fascinating like conversation because lots of people that want to do photography think that they do need to be these amazing technical people and like really understand like the numbers and the maths or the science, whatever behind it. I mean, I'm like, I obviously know a lot of technical stuff, but there's also a lot of stuff that I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always learning about photography and the technical side of things. But yeah, people really don't talk about all the other stuff because it is like learning to not manage people, but yeah, everything that we've just talked about it's really that's really that will shape your entire experience, and therefore the outcome of the photographs is how you create that environment. And I don't think people talk about it enough.
Well, I think that the actual weird thing from, again, I have very limited experience, but I've taught workshops on photography. I've seen people shoot celebrities. I've seen incredible photographers do what they do. That at every single level of photography, the most neglected part of what will make you a better photographer is everything but the camera.
Yeah.
Like everyone's so, and I think this is a very male trait, but everyone's so gear focused and so technicality focused.
Yeah.
And, your f3.5 to your f5.6, no one cares. If you're not doing something in the process of creating that picture that has a reason for someone to care about it beyond you explaining why it's technically good, you don't have anything. And I really feel like, I see it from new photographers and I get it because I think like a lot of people get into photography because they're kind of interested in the thing, not the process. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't, no.
But to get a style and to get a message in your work and to have, there's really no point in being an artist if you have nothing to say at all. That's like one of the things that like, we don't have enough good artists, but we probably have too many artists.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of people that are not saying anything with what they do. And Godspeed to them, they're allowed to do it. It's just my observation is that sometimes, yeah, you did a thing and it looks fine and it's pretty and whatever, but is there a purpose to it? Is there a message or is there a reason that you did that? Do I feel like this says something about you? That side of things is missing. I have no segue for this, so I'm going to do this in the most unintentional way possible. But so the name of this podcast is probably going to confuse a few people when they first see it. You don't even know the name of it, so this is the reveal. So it's going to be the Photography is Dead podcast, because I think since I started doing this like 13 years ago, every year there is some new thing that happens that people say, well, that's the end of that. Like, and the current thing obviously is AI. Like AI is now going to make, I mean, Adobe's made a pretty good hash of explaining to photographers that they need to pay higher subscription fees, but also that you don't need photographers anymore, which is a very strange business parameter to set out. But as far as AI goes, you're obviously someone that's incredibly inventive and creative, and I don't think that you're scared of something as daft as AI, like some people will be. But do you see that as being like a net positive or a negative thing with things going forward?
I kind of, the way that I feel and think about it is, I guess, more positively, because I just feel like it's like when the internet, everybody all of a sudden, it started using computers and the internet. It obviously did completely change the world, which I think we all feel the same about AI, don't we? We know that it's going to really change the world in a way. But I think it's going to I think we have to lean into it, because I think it is going to just generate different types of artists. But I do think that, as human beings, we're always going to want to look at something or to experience something that has been made by a person, and that they can really appreciate the art of that. That's why, everyone's buying vinyls again, and whenever people really appreciate this sort of stuff. But I don't want to sit here and to be like, yeah, everybody, don't worry about it, it's fine. I think that I think it's important to like just keep on top of it, do your research, and there's no point worrying about it. I say that as, I'm a worrier, a mother to a 3-year-old, but my husband's always like, worrying is not going to like get you anywhere. But I think just being I have to be mindful of it, definitely. But I think that, it's not going to go anywhere, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But I'm not fearful of my career as a photographer, but I mean, who knows? We might sit here in 10 years' time and I'll be like crying down the phone, going, everyone can just do one of my pictures on AI now. That's it, I'm done. But yeah, I think we're always going to want authenticity, always. And actually, yeah, I'm hoping and I'm hopeful that it will go in the direction of people actually appreciating it even more, because they're really going to want that like authentic storytelling and human emotion side of art and photography. So I think because I believe in that so strongly, that it kind of like doesn't worry me too much.
Well, I think the reason that it doesn't bother me as much is I understand everyone's concerned with it, but I look at the state of, for example, modern cinema, and almost every movie that's created of any real budget is created by committee. And that's ruining art more than a computer can ruin art. Having 50 people in a room have to go over everything with a fine-tooth comb and figure out how they can work in this brand deal or this message or this motivation, or can we get this person involved? That's killing art as much as anything. And I think what you're saying about authenticity is true. As long as you're doing something with authenticity, then there's going to be an audience for it. And also, if you're a true artist, you don't care about the audience that much. You care about your expression, and because if you start only caring about what the audience thinks, you end up with what a lot of is in the pop charts and stuff. You end up actually just you actually end up slipping into just people pleasing. So you end up then just creating work that you think that everybody else is just going to like, but you might end up not liking it. Yeah. Well, on that subject, and another totally normal thing that everyone does, you have a magazine.
I do.
Yeah. So tell us about the magazine.
So 2025. So it launched officially last July. The first digital cover was released. I know. Gosh, I know. It's been over a year. I can't believe it. It's been crazy, amazing crazy. But I'd probably say like maybe a good 6 months before that first release, maybe a bit longer actually. I was just feeling a bit stuck with my sort of creative editorial world, and it wasn't like I didn't appreciate the editorials and the editors that I was working with and magazines that I was shooting for at the time, because I still shoot for other magazines other than my own. Because most magazines today don't make money from selling a print issue. They make money from like brand sponsorships. So I had just had a really bad run of some editorials where I really felt like there was just too many people with too many opinions, like way too many people. Like I'm literally like, who are you? I haven't even met you before, and they're trying to like completely change everything, or and again, this is not me being a control freak, but when you're told on the morning of a shoot, you haven't even been told beforehand that, oh, by the way, Rachel, we have to get this designer on this talent because they're kind of sponsoring the whole shoot, and you're actually spending your own money to be there that day. So one, have you not only been learned that, oh, okay, actually you're getting paid right now and you haven't told me, and I'm actually paying out my own money to hire equipment to do this, like, what, for one, like, that's wrong. And then also I'm like, have you told the talent that have they agreed to wear this item of clothes for the cover? Because you can't force, when it's an editorial and no one's getting paid, well, obviously in their case I just found out that they technically were, but anyway, putting that aside, I'm like, I don't know why you're telling me, because I can't force anyone to wear something if they don't like it. So I just had a really bad run of these shoots. I just thought, this just feels so, you put your own money, you put your own heart and soul into it, and then you end up coming out like being really disappointed because you're just like, this is not, I'm investing a lot of time and money into this. And then one, do you not feel, so it's hugely disappointing when that happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but I just had this particular time, just had a bad run of them, and I just thought, I really had a strong feeling of really wanting to start my own thing. And I just thought, how amazing would it be to just strip away all those constraints? Like, it is literally just pure creative freedom with me and the creative team and the talent. Like, we're all together doing it, and minus everything else. Just get rid of all of that. And it really just, has been the ultimate passion project, if I'm honest. Because I'm also very aware that, it isn't sustainable just ploughing your own money into a project. But, like any business or any creative business, especially, is that, you're always going to have values there, and I'll always make sure those values stay with Defined. But anyway, it's Defined magazine, and that's how it was born. It was just born out of pure need to have creative freedom back in my editorial world. And then also just get to choose who I'm working with on a talent. Obviously I can kind of like choose who I shoot with or not anyway, but to be able to do that with my own baby, my own magazine, and to like choose the right team for it, and to kind of bring all these people together, and for me to stand there and say to everybody, listen, look, we don't have to get like 10 looks and 10 pages. We've only got 3 to 4 hours to do this shoot. It's all about the image. It's all about quality over quantity. It's amazing how people get really excited over that. So, it really is also about, when we were talking about the Lily James shoot, which was for Defined, is creating this safe, creative space for everybody to do some really cool stuff. And to also to create really cultural impactful moments as well, and I think a lot of the time you don't realize that you're making them, but I can already see it like starting to happen just with the stories and the storytelling, and like, it's all about their defining moments in their life and their careers, and like how we can sort of shape that and represent that as well. It's been a wild but like an amazing journey, but I had to work very hard.
How much do you have in terms of knowledge of the process of putting that together in advance? I can imagine you did lots of like Googling, and there was probably drawings and stuff, but like, did you make the decision you were going to go for it and then research it?
Oh my God, if I'm honest, Chris, I've just totally winged it the whole way through. I really have. But I've been so honest with people. Like I've just I've literally just emailed someone and said, over the past 12 months, can we just meet? Because I just really want to understand like what you do, and like if there's any way that you can help me somehow. And then, I've even had like lots of meetings where I think they've even been confused, but I've just been really honest with them. And I said, listen, look, I've started this thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I've got no idea. I'm a photographer. I'm not a publisher, and I've never done a magazine before. So like, how does it work?
Yeah.
Tell me, like, can you give me some advice? And actually, I do really think that there's power in being like really honest and nice and asking for help and, you know, saying, and yeah, you know, again, what is the worst that's going to happen? They're just going to be like, yeah, sorry, I'm too busy, I can't help you. But I've really had some really good advice just from reaching out to people and asking them for some advice. Yeah.
So if I could ask, because you're obviously fantastically smart and you're aware of the industry and you're fairly well published, I'm sure you'll be happy to say. What's the reason, do you think, for traditional magazine stuff kind of taking a back seat lately? Do you think, I know that there's a few factors that people might point to, they're very, very advertisement heavy, which is obviously, I don't think that's ever really been a major issue. I can understand why people, if they haven't picked up a Vogue in 30 years, pick up a Vogue and they're like, Jesus Christ, it's like, you have to get through, you know, a 3-story block to get to the point where it's not an advert. But I don't know if that's the biggest thing, because I think that the way that adverts work in something like Vogue, that's still visual candy for the person that's picking up the magazine. Another aspect that gets brought up a lot is that, like, something like Vogue is supposed to be a mirror to the culture, not telling people what the culture needs to be. And there seems to be a bit of a forceful nature of the way that culture is displayed now. From your point of view, what could it be doing to improve, or what do you think the root cause of the problem is?
Oh, I mean, that's a whole other podcast, isn't it?
Sorry.
Yes, no, I know that is literally a whole other podcast. I think the truth is I don't really know, but I think a lot of publications have gone wrong where they haven't maybe kept up with the times quick enough,
right?
And I maybe panicked in a level of, you know, it's all down to money at the end of the day, isn't it? You know, can we survive next month to keep this going? And then, you know, they might have to just change something drastically, and then like the value part of like what they believe in and ends up being destroyed a little bit. You know, it's all these things, isn't it? But I think that in terms of like an actual printed magazine, I feel like I feel like there's always going to be a need for it. It depends what it is. It's like if it is very, very commercially led, then I'm probably not interested in that anymore. The you know, 20 pages of adverts before you get to the editorial content actually doesn't bother me, because I actually appreciate and understand that, like, you know, we want magazines to exist, and of course I think everybody would agree we don't want them to all of a sudden disappear, because it is, you know, people's thoughts and a collection of ideas and all these things that have come together. But I kind of feel like it's the quality of the editorial work that really speaks to me. So if there is freedom there and I'm looking at something that is like new and fresh and is getting me to think differently, or I'm reading an article that's like a different perspective, or just getting you to just really just think outside the box and just to kind of like look at something from a different point of view or whatever, I think that's there's always going to be a need for that, and I find that really exciting. I think that's the key, is to always have that like that truest form of like creating editorial content. It's when the two worlds kind of collide. Like if the editorials are getting if the editorial voice is getting destroyed because of commercialism, I think that's when it's a super
fine line, right? Because of the nature of what a magazine is and what the fashion industry is in its absolute core is actually a commercial entity.
Yeah.
Which everyone inside is pushing as hard as they can to get it over onto the artistic side. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to move, because, you know, money moves the needle more than people's upset moves the needle generally. So
it's true. I know. Yeah,
so
it's true.
With the putting together of this, obviously you're episode number 1, which makes you infinitely special, and I'm super thankful that you did this. One thing I'm going to ask everyone to do, and I asked you, is to talk about one particular shot or shoot that you've had, which has an interesting story or an interesting premise or whatnot. And what I'll do for those listening, if there will be a YouTube version of this, there is no video because of what I look like as a human being.
I mean, I'm practically in my pajamas right now. So.
I mean, we both can only see each other from the waist up, so God knows what's going on. But yeah, so on the YouTube channel, I will put up the image that we're going to discuss. But so you decided to pick your most recent cover.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the shoot itself and how, let me ask you a question before we even get started. Did the end image look like the planning?
Good question. I kind of feel like I've ruined this already because I've talked about it a little bit when we were talking about inverted triangles and symbolism.
Right. No, it's okay. That's okay.
So I feel like I don't want to repeat myself. So I'm like, I need to say something.
But it had strong feminism themes and, strong female themes.
Yeah.
In terms of like the actual. Okay, so putting that message across to Lily James, correct?
Yeah.
Putting that across to Lily James, was she on board straight away? Did she have her own suggestions? Did you have I know you probably had a sketch because I've seen you work now and I know there's always a sketch. How close are we with the end product of the sketch?
Probably only 25%, to be honest. I knew that I wanted to do a really powerful shot of her sitting somehow, or just kind of like perching nicely, with really strong lighting, in that cove in the studio. And I knew I wanted to try and get a reflection of light of that kind of inverted triangle somewhere in it. So I had that sketch and I had that sort of vision in my head, but I didn't really know what kind of outfit it would suit until I was kind of like in the moment. Mm-hmm. So when she was in this really strong black coat with these kind of huge collar. Yeah, collar. The collar.
I think lapel.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I think yeah.
I just thought, I think this might be the moment that this might work, but I couldn't really visualize it in my head properly. And there was a lot of Lily was trying some really amazing poses initially, but you're always up against the fashion as well, so it's the coat wasn't kind of quite behaving itself, and she was doing these really epic poses, but then the coat was sort of opening too much, and I love photographing women that really kind of own their body and sort of want to sort of show that, but when it gets a little bit too much, yeah. The coat's literally slipping off. But okay, let's just try and find a different pose. But she is brilliant because she's so collaborative, and there wasn't any moment working with her that I felt maybe I shouldn't suggest that or say that. I mean, I'd just say it anyway. But she was just really yeah, I can see what you mean, Rach. Yeah, let's try this. And I'd be yeah, maybe try that. It was just a really beautiful. Collaboration between us and everybody else. So then there was just this moment that she just sort of just sat there, and then that inverted triangle, just that reflection of that light, just sat perfectly behind her, and I just took that shot. And it was kind of almost like one of those in-between shots that you think we haven't really started yet, but that was just it. And then again, it's just that look to camera. I did it is almost like I had visualized it before, but it wasn't quite there until it was there.
Right. Was it a moment where, because obviously you're tethering, did you shoot through the moment and keep going, or did you stop? Because I know what it feels like when you take a picture and things line up and it feels like serendipity and you're I know that was the one, but sometimes you feel like I can't just drop it here because I might lose the moment and the next shot might be the actual one. I might just be aware that I'm in the right zone. So did you keep shooting, or did you kind of go, no, that's it?
I did actually stop in that moment, but I did want to carry on a little bit just because I was literally only like, I think 10 frames in. And I just wanted to just get just a little bit more of a variety just in case. But I mean, you know, of course what happened, I always went back to that shot. Even when I was looking back through it, I was like, yeah, I knew that was literally the one. And it always helps as well when you stop at an image and you're like, before you've even said, I think that's it, that's amazing, everybody else is like, oh my god,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know, so you just you know it generally you're all feeling the same thing, and I think like having that a similar reaction with everybody, what you're feeling inside is just, yeah, it's you kind of know. So I did carry on a little bit, but I did stop.
On that note, so something that I do quite a lot is that I don't look at what I've shot immediately afterwards, like as in post shoot. I leave it for a couple of days because you still have like a lingering emotional connection to like specific moments during the shoot, and I don't trust myself at all to not go, well, I like that one, and I probably like that one because we were getting on better at that point than at another point in the shoot. I'm assuming, and maybe unfairly, please feel free to hit me with a stick here, but I'm assuming you probably have a retoucher. Like, I can't imagine you're, yeah, okay. So before you send off the images, how long are you going before you like go through and check which ones are making it?
I mean, if there are the odd situations where like I've got a really tight turnaround and I'm kind of like forced to sort of edit pretty much immediately afterwards or like the next day, and I really struggle with that because I totally agree with you. I think having like just 2 days separation, you know, like I'll come home and I'll back it up, but then I will literally just, yeah, like if I have the luxury of time, I just won't look at it. Sometimes I actually won't look at a shoot for a week, and then I will literally obsess over it for probably a few days. And the editing process for me is actually quite intense as well. I think everything that I do is intense. I drive myself great and I drive myself mad, but sometimes it could literally take me, again, if I've got the time, it will take me days to edit a shoot. Just the way that it's framed could change the whole image for me, or the way that it's rotated, or just like darkening the blacks or anything. Like it's that process. I will pretty much grade and get the edit to a point of kind of that's how I see it, and then when it's the edit's final and approved, and I send it to my retoucher, it's just kind of like a light touch up really. But I have actually done, I mean, Capture One and all these applications, you know, they're so good now. You can really do so much in them, you know, before you've even sent them off to any retoucher or retouch them yourself. But yeah, just kind of like the kind of grading kind of aspects of it. I do quite a lot of that in Capture One actually, and I really enjoy it. And then
you actually did something in Capture One when I was watching you shoot, which I didn't know was a feature. So I already it was valuable just because of the way you were doing it. But you were like reframing the image that you had taken, or your selections. You were reframing them to see how they would look as an editorial, and I found everything about the way that you work to be like chicken soup for a very, very fatigued photographer. It was very enjoyable. I remember when we met up, I had a lot going on like in my personal life, and it was a bit of a busy time. And it was just a really enjoyable day just to watch someone, not to be fair, to watch like 10 people that are at the absolute peak of their abilities, just all having a ton of fun getting stuff done. And one thing I will say as well, and I'll promise I don't blow smoke up everyone's ass. You've met me. I'm the most miserable human being on the face of the earth. But one thing I will say is that every stage of watching you work and the shoot from the pre-production to the end caught me out with like it was better than I expected it to be at every stage. So like the opening part of the day with the meeting, I was, if I'm honest, I'm a very cynical person. I was like, okay, like it's going to be like a quick 2-minute thing, like go team, try and do a good job kind of meeting. And it was really detailed and everyone was kind of chipping in. Then I watched everything get set up. I watched you guys work through lighting setups and work through ideas, and it was really interesting. Start to see the images come up. That was really interesting. Watching a hairdresser use a balloon and hairspray to do something wild. People will see that in the video, but like just incredible work all the way around. And then even when you sent me the final images weeks later, I even then I was like, God damn, like I was there and I still don't understand how some of this was done. So the whole process was amazing. I promise we're on the final hurdle because I know that there's better things for you to be doing than talking to me online. But
I could talk about photography. You know, I said this to when we first met, like, you're going to have to tell me to just be quiet because I
love
about
it.
photography forever and ever and ever.
There's a lot of photographers and there's very few fans of photography. It feels like a lot of photographers are kind of, they want to talk about everything else. And I have to admit, one of the things that is very difficult to do when you go and film behind the scenes of a photographer working is that when they start talking to you about politics, it's like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's not what we're here for.
Never talk about politics.
No. And yeah, so it's that side of things is just not for me at all. As we're on the last leg here, obviously how long did you say you've been photographing now?
I'm so bad at maths. So I'm 40 next year, and I started professionally, probably when I was about 23. So 17
years.
There you go.
Let's go 17 years.
Thank you.
Okay, so 17 years in. I have two questions. I'll start with the first one. It should be quite straightforward, hopefully. When you started, you had a style that you were working towards professionally. How far have we deviated? Like, is it like a huge chasm?
It's so far that the first sort of decade of my career was just sort of figuring out like who I was, to be honest, and just people pleasing, you know. And it's not that I'm not proud of that work. I'm very, very proud of all that work, and actually it pains me to actually not include it in my portfolio anymore. And I never want anyone to think that like I'm not proud of that work, but it just wasn't me. It just wasn't like, I didn't, you know. I talked about this in another interview actually. And I think it's such a valuable point. It was probably around COVID time, so yeah, really not that long ago. And you know, I kind of had one of these moments where I was like, I need to start shooting the way that I was meant to shoot. Like and I haven't found my artistic voice yet. So incredibly grateful that, you know, I've got a skill and I'm getting paid to do it and all of that. But I'm really just feeling frustrated that I still hadn't really like found my own. And I did this task where took me ages, but I got all of my work, which was a lot of images, and I just put it all on a mood board, like literally hundreds and hundreds of images, and they ended up being really tiny little thumbnails on my screen. And then I brought my sister over, and cause she's really good. Really, she's probably one of the only people that could be really brutally honest and like about like any of this. And anyway, I said to her, like, what do you think about this? And she went, do you want my honest opinion? I was like, yes, please. That's why I'm asking. And she said, I look at it and I think technically brilliant photographer, but I've got no idea what I'm going to get from you. And I was like, oh, it was like, it really hit me. I was like, oh, because really what she was saying is that I don't know who you are as a photographer or as an artist. I don't know what I'm going to get from you. If I was to employ you, am I going to get that? Am I going to get that? Like, you know, so many different light setups and moods and styles, and just everything was just such all over the place. And I was like, okay. And I actually was a bit angry with my sister for a couple of days. I thought, how could she? You think, how could she? But actually, she was so right. And this is actually, I think it is kinder, if it's done in the right way, it's kinder when people are honest with you. Because if throughout your whole life, if everyone's always just going to be like, oh God, you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing. You're just going to think you're amazing and that's it. And you're never going to grow. Whereas that was a huge turning point for me, and it literally changed my whole life. And I thought, gosh, she's totally right. So I started to literally, okay, that's definitely not me because it doesn't say anything about like this or this. So that's gone. And I literally started removing all this work, and I came down to about 20 pictures. And I was like, that feels like me because of so and so. Or maybe I don't even exactly know why yet, but this is giving me something. Like I've got like the emotions there. Like this really feels, and I just, and every time I did a shoot there afterwards, I was like, I need to hold that in everything else that I do next, and that's where I am now, and that's what I'm still doing, and I still really feel like I've really found my own way artistically. It's a really long answer, sorry, Chris, but I felt like it was a good point. I felt like it was a really good point to make, because I think the power of like editing your own portfolio and being really brutally honest with yourself is one of the best things you can do as an artist, I think.
No, 100%. Like, people should be taking a sieve to their portfolio probably once every 3 months, just to be sure that nothing's snuck in that shouldn't be there. And at the moment, I'm in the worst position with that. Like, I've become very indifferent with my own stuff. So it's that's the problem, is indifference, and lethargy is like the enemy of actually putting real shit down and proving like what your point is. The problem with the last question is that you're in a very good place. Like, you obviously have great images and you continue to create great work. And I'm not going to speak for you, but you seem to be very happy with where you are artistically. But if you were to take the last 17 years of experience and go back and talk to yourself on day one, what's the one thing you would tell yourself to like look out for, or to make sure you do or don't do? What's the one bit of advice?
Oh, God. I've got so much to say about this, but I think if I had to choose like one thing, I honestly think it would be to just have like way more confidence in yourself, because I think confidence is everything. I don't think you need to be the smartest person in the room. I don't think you need to be the most gifted person in the room. I don't think any of those things, but I think if you have got the confidence and the belief in yourself to just take action and to do something, whether it's great or not, like there's so much growth and like beauty in that. And I think that, yeah, when I was first starting out, I mean, I definitely had confidence. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be where I am today. You know, there was definitely there was definitely a drive there, 100%. But I think that I think there was too many years where I didn't feel confident enough. I
mean, confidence is, what's what I always say, fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Looking confident does 90% of the work, opens 90% of the doors as well.
Yeah.
Okay, you're an absolute wonderful human being for doing this. I appreciate you taking time out, especially because we've done this late at night, and that's terrible because everyone, as we know, in the creative industry goes to bed right around 9 p.m. So the most important thing is that everyone is as supportive as possible when it comes to this stuff. So I want to know where people can find everything about you. So Instagram, website, magazine, tell everyone where to go.
I think a good starting place is probably my Instagram, which is Rachell with 2 L's, RACHELL _photo. Of course, I had to have photo in my Instagram handle. So yeah, Rachell with 2 L's _photo on Instagram. And then from there, you've got the links to my own personal website, and then the Defined magazine, Instagram, and then all the links there to the websites. So yeah, it's really easy to kind of like link off from
the beauty of social media. You just give someone one place to go and they can do the rest of the work. It's great. Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely implore everyone to go and check out Rachell's amazing work and be slightly intimidated by it. But thank you so much for doing this. You're a wonderful person, and maybe see you soon.